Have any words of advice for him going forward?
Well, I think he doesn't need much advice now. He's showing everyone that he has a great team next to him and great family.
Completes the career slam and says a very nice hello to Rafa. I want to hear the conversation.
Let me know where we're going later.
I'm gonna keep going. Yeah, for me it's a little bit, as Djokovic said, a little bit weird, seeing Rafa, in the stands. So it's
King meets king. Nadal and Alcaraz's emotional reunion shakes the tennis world.
Completes the career slam and says a very nice hello to Rafa. I want to hear the conversation.
Let me know where we're going later.
But a shadow looms over Spain's future. Let's be honest. When Rafael Nadal and Carlos Alcaraz walk into the same room together, the air changes.
Have any words of advice for him going forward?
Well, I think he doesn't need much advice now. He's showing everyone that he has a great team next to him and great family.
Time bends. You feel the weight of history pressing against the present. Two generations of Spanish greatness standing shoulder to shoulder, one chapter closing, another being written in real time. And this week in Madrid, that feeling hit differently than it ever has before, because what happened at the Laureus World Sports Awards wasn't just a glamorous night out for a couple of tennis icons.
Enhorabuena, ánimos, estamos contigo.
bueno, muchas gracias. La verdad que
It was a passing of the torch so powerful, so loaded with symbolism, that it stopped the entire sports world in its tracks. Welcome back to Champions Tennisistics. And if you thought this was just going to be a feel-good story about two Spaniards on a red carpet, buckle up. Because beneath the tuxedos and the trophies and the laughs, there is a storm brewing. A wrist brace, a Roland Garros defense in serious jeopardy, and a throne that Jannik Sinner is already sitting on while Alcaraz can't even pick up a tennis racket. This story has everything: legacy, drama, injury crisis, and the uncomfortable question that nobody in the tennis world wants to ask out loud. What happens to the clay season if Carlos Alcaraz doesn't make it to Paris? We start where any great story starts, at the beginning of something new. Because when Carlos Alcaraz arrived at the Laureus World Sports Awards ceremony in Madrid, every single eye in the room was immediately drawn to one thing: his right wrist. Alcaraz was seen wearing a brace, his wrist immobilized, confirming the fears that had been swirling in the tennis world for days. And yet somehow, against all odds, in the middle of one of the worst weeks of his young career, the man walked onto that stage and collected the most prestigious individual prize in world sport. Carlos Alcaraz was named Laureus World Sportsman of the Year at the annual Laureus World Sports Awards in Madrid, honoring his standout 2025 season on the ATP Tour. Let that sink in for a second. The man is injured. He just withdrew from 2 tournaments on Spanish soil, tournaments he loves, tournaments where his fans worship him like a local deity. He is in genuine doubt for the French Open, and he still gets to stand in a ballroom in his home country and be told, by a jury of the greatest athletes on the planet, that he was the best sportsman in the world. In 2025, Alcaraz won a tour-leading 8 titles, including majors at Roland Garros and the US Open, and finished as ATP year-end #1 after a back-and-forth battle with his great rival, Jannik Sinner. That season alone would have been enough to cement a legacy. But Alcaraz didn't stop there. He opened 2026 by winning the Australian Open and completing the career Grand Slam at just 22 years old. The kid from El Palmar, Murcia, had done what only a handful of men in the entire history of tennis had ever done: won every single Grand Slam title there is to win. And standing right there alongside him, beaming, laughing, sharing a moment that felt more like a movie scene than real life, was the man who inspired it all: Rafael Nadal. Nadal enjoyed a laugh on the red carpet with his countryman Carlos Alcaraz, who was nominated for World Sportsman of the Year. They posed together. They joked. They shared that easy, electric energy that only exists between two people who understand each other at the deepest possible level, as competitors, as countrymen, as members of the most exclusive club in tennis history. And the reason that club feels so staggering is because of what it actually means. Spain became the only country in the Open era to have produced 2 men who have completed the career Grand Slam. Not America, not Switzerland, not Serbia, Spain. A country that has somehow produced not one, but two men capable of winning every single Grand Slam. The most physically and mentally demanding individual achievement in the sport. Think about how impossible that sounds. The career Grand Slam, winning the Australian Open, the French Open, Wimbledon, and the US Open. For different surfaces, for different continents, for different cultures of tennis, all conquered. Nadal completed his own career Grand Slam at the 2010 US Open, aged 24 years and 88 days, becoming the first Spanish man to achieve the feat. And then, more than 15 years later, Alcaraz didn't just follow that same path. He obliterated it. Nadal held the record as the youngest player in the Open era to win all 4 majors at 24 years old, until his compatriot Carlos Alcaraz completed the feat at 22 years old in 2026. In doing so, Alcaraz also broke Nadal's record for the number of majors competed in before achieving the career Grand Slam. Nadal took 20 campaigns, while Alcaraz took just 12 Grand Slam appearances. Most players don't even know how to tie their laces properly in 12 Grand Slams. Alcaraz was already collecting the full set. And perhaps the most breathtaking part of all of this is that the man who held every record Alcaraz shattered was standing right next to him on that red carpet, not with envy or bitterness, but with joy, with pride, with the kind of satisfaction that only comes from watching something you built, a legacy, a culture, a standard, continue to grow beyond anything you could have imagined. And then there was the other moment. The one that happened just hours before all the champagne and the photographs and the ceremony. Because the night before the Laureus Awards, Nadal had sent Alcaraz a text message of support following his straight sets defeat to Holger Rune in Barcelona. Not a press release, not a public gesture, a private text.
Have any words of advice for him going forward?
Well, I think he doesn't need much advice now. He's showing everyone that he has a great team next to him and great.
Now, let's talk about what made the night so emotionally loaded beyond just Alcaraz's triumph. Because Rafael Nadal didn't just attend the Laureus Awards as a spectator or a well-wisher. He walked in as the guest of honor. Rafael Nadal was honored with the Laureus Sporting Icon Award, only the second time the award has ever been given in the ceremony's history. He was presented his honor by legendary Olympic gold medal-winning hurdler Edwin Moses and handed his trophy by gymnast Simone Biles, the second ever recipient of an award that screams. This person transcended their sport. The first was Valentino Rossi, and now Rafa Nadal joins that list. Just let that breathe for a moment. Nadal has collected 5 Laureus statuettes over his career before announcing his retirement in October 2024. He won his first Laureus Award as World Breakthrough of the Year in 2006, and in 2024 his foundation was honored with the Laureus Sport for Good Award. And now the Sporting Icon Award completes what can only be described as the full Laureus collection, a man who didn't just win in sport, but reshaped what winning looked like for an entire generation. Nadal is the only athlete to have won the Sportsman of the Year award, the Comeback of the Year, the Breakthrough of the Year, and the Laureus Sport for Good award. That is a record that will stand for a very, very long time. When Nadal took the stage to accept his Sporting Icon award, he didn't come with a prepared speech. He came with his heart. He told the room, "I didn't prepare for this amazing moment, talking in front of all of you. But a lot of you have been sports people that inspired me since I was a kid, and having the chance to talk in front of you today is something very, very special." And then, with that unmistakable Nadal directness, he turned to the athletes who were still competing and delivered one of the most genuine, from-the-gut pieces of advice any sports icon has ever shared publicly. He told them to enjoy the moment, to appreciate every single second, because professional careers are short. And if that message was aimed anywhere, it was aimed squarely at the young man standing somewhere in that room with a wrist brace on his arm, trying to keep smiling while everything he'd worked for this spring was slipping through his fingers. Now we have to talk about the elephant in the room, or rather, the wrist brace in the room. Because for all the magic and emotion of that evening, the story that is dominating the tennis world right now is not about trophies and history. It is about whether Carlos Alcaraz, the reigning French Open champion, the defending Roland Garros title holder, is even going to make it to Paris. Alcaraz has won the past 2 French Open titles, including a grueling 5-hour comeback against Jannik Sinner last year. And now, with just over a month until Roland Garros begins, his participation is genuinely in question. Here's what happened. Alcaraz had already been grinding through a brutal clay swing. He pushed himself at Monte Carlo, making it all the way to the final, where Sinner beat him and reclaimed the world #1 ranking. Then, showing the kind of stubbornness and passion that defines him, Alcaraz insisted on playing at the Barcelona Open, a tournament that holds special meaning for him, a tournament he won twice earlier in his career. But his body had other ideas. He was forced to withdraw from the Barcelona Open, and a week later, Alcaraz announced his withdrawal from the Mutua Madrid Open, the second consecutive year he has missed the competition on home soil. The news that he was pulling out of Madrid hit particularly hard. Alcaraz wrote on social media, "There are some news that are incredibly hard to share. Madrid is home, one of the most special places on my calendar, and that's why it hurts so much not to be able to play here for the second year in a row." The wrist injury is not something Alcaraz downplayed or tried to hide. He has been completely honest about it, which is either refreshing or terrifying depending on how you feel about Roland Garros. He explained when announcing his Barcelona withdrawal, "I thought it was just soreness from the intensity of the week, but after the tests, it turned out to be a bit more serious than we expected." And the images that emerged in the days that followed told their own story. Alcaraz was spotted wearing a rigid splint on his wrist and forearm, with straps keeping the hand and wrist fixed in place, a device typically used for wrist fractures, severe sprains, ligament injuries, and sometimes for post-surgical immobilization. That is not a tweaked muscle. That is not normal player maintenance. That is a serious injury presenting itself at the worst possible time of the tennis calendar. Alcaraz himself, in one of the more candid and mature statements of his career, put the situation into perspective at his Laureus press conference. He said, "We have a very long career ahead of us. Forcing myself to play this Roland Garros could seriously harm my future tournaments." And separately, he made his priorities crystal clear. "I would rather come back later and in top condition than return too soon and not be ready." The man is 22 years old and already thinking like a veteran, already making the calculation that Nadal, who famously pushed through injury after injury throughout his career, made many times. The calculus between playing now and paying for it later. And the fact that Alcaraz is already operating with that kind of long-term intelligence at 22, with 7 Grand Slams already in his pocket, tells you everything about how this young man approaches his career. But the fears are not just Alcaraz's own. The entire tennis establishment is watching anxiously. Madrid Open director Feliciano Lopez has spoken from painful personal experience, saying, "I've had that injury myself. From what I've heard, it's a very common injury in the world of tennis." And his prognosis was devastating in its directness. "Madrid is out. Rome seems almost impossible to me. Hopefully he will be fit for Roland Garros." Rome, the Italian Open, another Masters 1000 event that Alcaraz won last year, that he was hoping to defend. Gone. Another blank in a spring schedule that was supposed to be one of the richest chapters of his career. Think about what is at stake here in pure sporting terms. Lopez spelled it out without sugarcoating. There are 4,000 points at stake and the prestige of 3 major tournaments. And while Alcaraz has repeatedly said he is not worried about the rankings battle with Sinner, the reality is that Sinner now faces a major opportunity to extend his lead in the rankings and solidify his position as world #1. The Italian machine, who has not dropped a set at ATP Masters 1000 level in months, is playing some of the best tennis of his career, and the field in Madrid and Rome is now wide open without his fiercest rival to stop him. There is something almost poetic and painful about this moment in the Alcaraz story. Here is a young man who just became the youngest person in the Open era to complete the career Grand Slam, who just won the Laureus World Sportsman of the Year award, who just received a private text of encouragement from Rafael Nadal himself. And yet fate has conspired to put him in a cast, on the sideline, watching the clay season roll by without him. The same clay that was supposed to be his kingdom this spring. The same red dirt that Nadal dominated for 2 decades. The surface where Alcaraz has won back-to-back French Opens and was supposed to be arriving as the undisputed champion. And yet, even in the doubt, even in the uncertainty, Something Alcaraz said at the Laureus press conference struck a note that felt bigger than the injury. When asked about his rivalry with Sinner, Alcaraz said, "The rivalry that I have with Jan-Nick, it's in my mind every day. Every time I'm going to step on the court for practice, I'm just thinking about what I should do to be better, what I should do when I'm going to face Jan-Nick for the next time. I think this rivalry is really beautiful. I'm really grateful for having him around, although not when he beats me." That last line, that is the Alcaraz that the world fell in love with. The competitive fire wrapped in warmth and humor. The kid who is deadly serious about winning but never loses the joy of the game. And it is exactly that spirit, that refusal to be broken by setbacks, that ability to find the light even in the dark, that connects him so profoundly to the man who inspired him. Rafael Nadal spent his entire career fighting through pain, through doubt, through moments when the world wrote him off. And every single time, he came back. He came back better, hungrier, more dangerous. Because champions do not just produce greatness when everything is going perfectly. They produce it when everything is falling apart. The Laureus night in Madrid was a snapshot of something rare and beautiful in sport. When Carlos Alcaraz, Rafael Nadal, Novak Djokovic, and Stefanos Tsitsipas are all in the same room, when it is not at a tennis tournament, you know it is a special occasion. The past, present, and future of the game all breathing the same air, all honoring the same values: excellence, sacrifice, passion, legacy. Alcaraz, reflecting on what Nadal achieved on the clay swing that Alcaraz is now himself struggling to dominate, said, "I bow at the feet of Rafa because of what he did week after week. You have to respect that. We admire Rafa for what he's done, particularly on this swing. But winning everything consecutively is kind of impossible. And once you've experienced it firsthand, you appreciate what Rafa did much more and how difficult it is to be 100% physically and mentally week after week." There it is, from the mouth of the air himself. The admission that what Nadal did, 14 French Opens, consecutive clay season dominance for nearly 2 decades, was not just great. It was beyond great. It was something that stretches the limits of what the human body and human will can achieve. And Alcaraz, in the middle of his own physical struggle, looked at his countrymen and saw not a standard to be feared, but a standard to be honored. A standard that now lives inside him as motivation to keep going. So where does this leave us? It leaves us in one of the most compelling, emotionally charged moments in recent tennis history. A Laureus ceremony that produced both triumph and heartbreak in equal measure. A champion picking up the sport's most prestigious individual honor with a wrist brace on his arm. A legend standing beside him, trophy in hand, decades of glory etched into every line of his face. A rivalry with Jan-Nick Sinner that is reshaping what the top of men's tennis looks like. And a Roland Garros, just weeks away, where the clay courts are waiting to see if the defending champion can heal in time to defend his throne. Spain has given the world 2 of the greatest tennis players who ever lived. 2 men who completed the career Grand Slam. 2 men who stood on the biggest stages in sport and delivered, time after time after time. One of them is retired now, collecting sporting icon awards and sending encouraging texts from the sidelines. The other is 22 years old, already the greatest of his generation, and fighting through an injury that threatens to change the course of this entire season. But if there is one thing Carlos Alcaraz has taught us, if there is one thing Rafael Nadal proved in every single chapter of his career, it is that the story is never over when you think it is. The comeback is always possible. The court is always waiting. And the next chapter is always the one nobody saw coming. We will be watching every development. We will be here for every update. And if Alcaraz walks onto that court at Roland Garros with that wrist taped up and fire in his eyes, you already know what happens. The crowd erupts, the clay flies, and a new chapter of Spanish tennis greatness gets written in real time. This is Champions Tennisitics. And if you are as locked in on this story as we are, hit that like button right now. Drop a comment below telling us what you think. Does Alcaraz make it to Roland Garros? And does he defend the title? Your takes, your predictions, your passion, that is what this community is all about. And if you have not subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? We cover every angle of professional tennis the way it deserves to be covered, with drama, with depth, and with the kind of love for this sport that only true fans understand. Subscribe to Champions Tennisitics. We will see you in the next one.
completes the career slam and says a very nice hello to Rafa. I want to hear the conversation.
Let me know where we're going later.
Have any words of advice for him going forward?
Well, I think he doesn't need much advice now. He's showing everyone that he has a great team next to him and great family.